So anyway,
Good morning.
How are
How
you?
are you doing?
Good. How about you?
Great.
Good.
I'm gonna start, I guess.
you're gonna start.
Maybe 2 minutes.
Mildred,
Yeah.
you want to good evening.
I call to order the February 2026 meeting of the Mission Fulfillment Committee of the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to those who are joining via live stream video, and I note Regents Verhalen and Regent Gully are joining us online, and those attending in our boardroom here on the Twin Cities campus and on Zoom. Before we turn to our agenda, let me welcome our student representatives today. Joining us this morning are Samia Abdu from the Twin Cities campus, and a new student representative, Isabella Peterson from the Duluth campus. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and being here. Thanks for serving. The first item on our agenda is the annual report on the state of the university research enterprise. Taking us through the report is interim Vice President for Research and Innovation, Joanne Billings, Associate Vice President for Research Capacity Building, Kimberly Kirkpatrick, and Assistant Vice President for External Affairs and Communications, June Cho. Before we turn to our presenters, President Cunningham, would you like to provide some comments?
Thank you, Chair Johnson, and good morning, members of the committee, and good morning to the team. At the University of Minnesota, advancing research and scholarship is a key component of our mission. Today's report will offer insight on how we continue to grow this enterprise, deliver real-world benefits, and raise the bar on national and global stages. This is really exceptional work being done in exceptionally trying times. We're navigating federal policy uncertainty and increasing compliance demands, among other challenges the team is facing. I'm very grateful to Joanne Billings, Interim Vice President for Research and Innovation, for her leadership in this effort. And at this time, I'll invite her to provide the annual report.
Good morning, Chair Johnson, Vice Chair Gully, members of the Mission Fulfillment Committee, President Cunningham, and Provost Ritter. I'm Joanne Billings, Interim Vice President for Research and Innovation, and as you heard, joining me today are Dr. Kim Kirkpatrick, Associate Vice President for Research Capacity Building, and June Cho, the Assistant Vice President for External Affairs and Communications. Thank you for the opportunity to present this year's annual report on the state of the university's research enterprise. Today, I will focus on 3 themes: the scale and strength of the university's research activity, the impact our research is delivering for communities across Minnesota, and how this work aligns with Elevate Extraordinary 2030 and positions the university to meet the state's future challenges. I will begin with the overall health of the research enterprise. According to the most recent National Higher Education Research and Development Survey, referred to as the HERD survey from the National Science Foundation, the university recorded $1.41 billion in research expenditures in the Twin Cities campus and $1.44 billion system-wide in fiscal year 2024. This places the Twin Cities campus 12th among all public research universities in the country. For context, our standing has remained in the top tier over time. A decade ago, in the fiscal year 2015 HERD survey, we ranked number 8 among public research universities. Today, we are still firmly in the top group nationally. This ranking is more than a number. It reflects the national competitiveness of our faculty, the trust placed in our teams by federal agencies and other sponsors, and the university's ability to solve complex challenges at scale. For Minnesota, it means our state is home to one of the most productive public research engines in the country, one that helps drive economic vitality, workforce development, and community well-being. Importantly, we're not seeing that strength in only one lane. This slide shows why a research enterprise why our research enterprise is not only large, but durable. Over the past decade, we've grown across every major source of support. Federal research expenditures are up over 57%. State and local support is up over 64%. And importantly, business and industry research expenditures are up over 97%. The last trend matters. Companies invest when they see real value, when our research is relevant, when partnerships are working, and when the university is helping advance innovation and talent pipelines. And the combination of growth across sources makes the enterprise more resilient in the face of year-to-year volatility in any one category. Expenditures show scale, awards show competitiveness, and forward momentum. In fiscal year 2025, university researchers competed for $1.22 billion in sponsored awards, a 15.6% increase from the prior year. Federal awards represented 54% of the total awards, with the National Institute of Health being our largest federal sponsor. This is an important signal to the university. Our teams are awarded these funds in an increasingly competitive environment, bringing resources into Minnesota and converting them into scientific discovery and outcomes that matter. Now, a strong enterprise doesn't stop at discovery. It translates discoveries into real-world use, and that is where we have an exceptional story to tell. Fiscal year 2025 was a record year for technology commercialization, which we call TechCom, and the national rankings are worth celebrating. We're number 9 in US patents among public universities, number 3 for startup creation, number 6 in new invention disclosures, and number 4 in new license deals. That is excellence across the full translation pipeline, not just one metric, and it's generating outcomes for Minnesota, including over 1,400 jobs created across our startup pipeline and 219 first-time inventor disclosures. Fiscal year 2025 TechCom metrics reflect our continued success. We launched 26 startups, with 77% being located in Minnesota, so that's 20 new companies rooted right here in our state. We recorded 450 new invention disclosures. We executed 248 licensing deals, moving discoveries into the hands of companies and partners who can scale them. We submitted 115 first patent filings, protecting university innovations so they can attract partners and investment. These practical indicators show that discovery doesn't stop at the publication. They move outward into products, companies, jobs, investment, and new capabilities for Minnesota. This slide reflects the contributions of our research beyond 2025. The impact compounds with multiple startups and deals until you can see it at scale. University-founded startups have attracted roughly $3.5 billion in investment over the past decade, with numerous companies acquired or going public, and well over 100 startups launched in the last several years. And beyond new companies, we've brought 30 innovations to market through licensing, products and solutions that reach patients, farms, factories, and communities. That is research to impact pipeline working. That is why we talk about compounding success. Fiscal year 2025 was strong on its own, but it also builds on a model of advancement where discoveries become companies, partnerships, and scalable solutions. This is a direct contributions to Minnesota's innovation economy, creating jobs, attracting investment, and strengthening Minnesota's innovation ecosystem. The next theme is how we deliver that impact, through interdisciplinary research. Minnesota's challenges, health disparities, aging populations, climate adaptation, agricultural sustainability, mobility barriers don't fit neatly into one discipline. Our competitive advantage is our ability to bring together medicine, public health, engineering, agriculture, data science, and social sciences into integrated teams. That interdisciplinary strength helps us win major awards, build industry partnerships, and translate research into real solutions for communities. Our first story illustrates this well. It's from our Duluth campus. The Memory Keepers Medical Discovery Team is leading nationally significant research on dementia in Indigenous and rural communities. As it's beautifully characterized by the research team, in many Indigenous cultures, respected adults and elders are responsible for preserving sacred medicine bundles, songs, and stories. In this spirit, the research they undertake to preserve brain health enables American Indian and rural communities to continue to benefit from the wisdom of their older adults and elders far into the future. With support from the National Institute of Health, they are developing culturally grounded diagnostic tools and care models that better reflect how dementia presents in these communities. This work is improving health outcomes, addressing long-standing disparities, and strengthening trust between the university and tribal nations and the university and rural communities. It is a clear example of research that is shaped by community partnership and grounded in Minnesota's unique needs. The second story comes from agriculture and life sciences research. Yord Bioscience is a St. Paul-based company spun out of university research that develops customizable microbial solutions for agriculture, essentially usually using naturally occurring microbes as next-generation crop inputs to help farmers improve yield, consistency of crop benefits, and sustainability. Their platform is built on more than 30 years of university research and a proprietary collection of over 6,500 microbial isolates. That matters because biological products often struggle with one key challenge: reliability in the field. Their advantage is that they can rapidly identify and combine microbial candidates that perform consistently across real farm conditions, then validate them through expanded field trials and partnerships. This story exemplifies research as part of the land grant mission, rigorous research that improve lives in the state, implemented by a company that serves as the bridge from the lab bench to the farmer's field. And it also connects to our next example. The same research to impact model, grounded in partnership and particular outcomes, shows not only in agriculture, but in how we tackle community challenges like mobility and access. This story addresses a challenge that is often overlooked, but essential to the strength of our communities: transportation insecurity. The Mobility, Access, and Transportation Insecurity Research Team is working directly with small towns, rural communities, and state and local partners to understand how transportation barriers limit access to jobs, healthcare, and education across the country. Their interdisciplinary work, combining policy analysis, planning, and data science, will lead community-level solutions and shape innovative mobility policies that will improve opportunities for Minnesota and beyond. This is research that indirectly improves daily life, and it reflects the university's longstanding role as a partner to communities across the entire state. Together, these stories demonstrate three defining characteristics of the university's research enterprise. First, interdisciplinary strength, bringing diverse expertise together around big problems. Second, deep community partnership. Minnesota communities are our collaborators. Third, measurable return on investment. Public and private dollars generate real value in health outcomes, startup formation, and community solutions. This is the land grant mission in action: strategic research that identifies the needs of the community, in these cases, health, agriculture, and accessibility, and delivers real outcomes for Minnesotans. And there are many more stories that can be told. Finally, I want to connect these efforts to Elevate Extraordinary 2030. Our research advances community health and well-being, strengthens sustainability and resilience, and supports economic vitality and workforce development, powered by cross-campus collaboration to amplify statewide impact. The university is prepared not only to respond to Minnesota's emerging challenges, but to lead on them, whether it is biomanufacturing, climate adaptation, artificial intelligence, advanced agriculture, or medical devices, we are strong, coordinated, and forward-thinking. In closing, the University of Minnesota continues to deliver research that elevates the state today and prepares us for tomorrow. This strength reflects the work of our faculty, our staff, students, and partners across every campus. It is also a reflection of the board's support and guidance. Thank you for the continued leadership and commitment to the university's research mission. We welcome your questions and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much for the excellent presentation and the written materials that got submitted. Of the many things that you've said and written about, I think what might stand out for a lot of Minnesotans is the research that comes out of here that then creates industry and creates businesses and jobs in Minnesota. 139 startups in over a 5-year period, and I think 26 just last year. Can I just ask what, there's probably various fields that these startups are in, but where, do you have a couple of examples of and a lot of them, it sounds like most of them stay in Minnesota too, which is impressive.
Right, okay, yes, so thank you, Chair Johnson. Primarily in biotech and pharma is where most of these are, where most of the startups are.
Thank you. I'll get other regions, but just to comment, actually in Duluth, I've toured the Memory Keepers facility and had lunch with the folks that work there, and it's very tough to break into Native American communities, especially, and chat with elders. So they're doing really impressive work there, and I think the research that will come out of that will be very important to that community and hopefully everybody else. So we've got a lineup of regents here with questions. Regent Turner.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Wonderful work. I do have a question about, I noted how many dollars we got from the federal, NIH and all that kind of stuff. And what do we predict for, are we going to be able to keep that amounts? And what are we doing to be able to keep that funding flowing from the federal government?
Yeah, thank you, Regent Turner and Chair Johnson. I would say, we are watching very closely what's happening with our proposals that are going in and our awards that we're seeing kind of coming down the pipeline. Although we did have a good year last year, I think our trends are looking a little bit more kind of flat this year. And that, of course, will then translate into our expenditures later on. I do think it's really important for us to look for ways to diversify our funding portfolio as much as possible. That will actually make us resilient. That's certainly something that's on our office's mind, to look for opportunities to invest in that diversification as much as possible.
Thank you. President Cunningham.
If I may, Chair Johnson and Regent Turner, and thank you all for the wonderful presentation. The data that we do present, so the HERD data is 2024 data. So just to remind people of that. So the year 2025 was special. So we'll have to see, there's a lot of things that happened in the climate in the year 2025. And certainly the office navigated through that quite well. We wound up, I think, with about flat funding, if I recall the numbers, where normally we would have an 8% growth. Flat funding, flat amount of expenditures is a wonderful thing in a year like last year, when for many years the federal budgets were held up and agencies weren't giving funding and agencies pulled back funding. But it'll be next year's a report like this where we'll see the impact of 2025 specifically. So for just that reminder. And then I was in 2 sets of national meetings this week where a major topic is the headwinds in federal funding.
Okay.
Sort of to your point, Regent Turner. So there's a number of things here. One, agency priorities are shifting, and with that, investigators have to shift the way that they're focusing, and they do that. They're very entrepreneurial. They're brilliant in figuring out how to move their work towards where the funding is. But there's a number of other federal policy components that are coming up for, in discussion in the agencies, everything from funding all 5 years of a grant in 1 year, which sounds like a good thing, except for that means you'll have a fifth of the awards out, right? So you'll have only, instead of 5 people getting 1 year of funding, you'll have 1 person get 5 years of funding, which will decrease the amount of awards. That's in debate and being debated currently in Congress, and there's proposals for it and proposals against it. So that type of thing has, many people in the senior science world quite concerned about, it used to be 20 or 30 years ago, if your faculty submitted a grant to, let's say, the NIH or somewhere else, they had to be in the top 20% to get that grant. And that's really good, right? Now they have to be in like the top 5% to get that grant. And what we're worried about and what we're all trying to address in national policy and national programs is how you keep the pipeline of faculty interested in applying and not discouraged and not moving away from science fields and from getting this kind of funding. And this may sort over the next couple of years, but this is sort of the current state of affairs. And then obviously there's big issues around the indirect costs and how those land, et cetera. So there's substantial headwinds coming in to the federal funding environment. And that may throw that chart all upside down. And also a number on that chart, if you look at that national data that they put forward in the last year, had their federal funding stopped altogether. So that will kind of throw that chart into disarray for next year. We're grateful that that did not happen with the university here. So those are sort of some of the headwinds. And then the other thing, 2 other things, well, I have the floor that I'll point out here. One is, even if we look at 2024, something to pay attention to without too much alarm, with much credit to the team, that number 12 ranking sustained over the last year or 2, right? So good, plateaued. But it is our job to think long range. And I do want to call your attention to, in 2015, we were 8th. We should pay attention to that trend, not be alarmed by it. There's a lot of people that are in that middle ground that are not very far off on the dollar amounts, right? It's $100 million here and a couple hundred, but however, we would not want that trend to continue, and that's going to require making sure that we're continuing to invest substantially in the things that make a strong research enterprise. Otherwise, we won't continue to have the luxury of being a top research enterprise. So it's something that the team's doing lots of great things on, and we have that kind of plateau. There are federal headwinds. We're going to have to continue to pay substantial attention to it if we want to remain a substantial research enterprise. And that's going to mean infrastructure research things. That's going to mean research operations things. There's going to be things we're going to be talking about here that are going to be important so that that potential trend doesn't continue, and make sure that we continue to capitalize on the amazing university we are at this moment in time and all of the strengths we have. And then finally, I'll say it is incredibly unusual to have 70% of startups stay within a state. It speaks to the ecosystem that we're in. Also, if you notice, if we're 12th or so in the amount of money we have to spend, but we're number 3 in the amount of startups we turn out, like, our people are super efficient and the ecosystem we're in is super productive for that. So that also makes us a great bet for giving us state or federal funds, because we manage to take that same orange that everybody else gets and get a lot more juice, so to speak, out of it.
Right.
Thank you, President Cunningham. Regent Bergstrom.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. My question just got answered, so thank you.
Regent Hipsch.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. I got 2 questions, and the first one relates to what President Cunningham was just talking about. And that's Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Okay, we want to beat Wisconsin and everything. So, I mean, it's, that's that's.
You have your marching orders.
Right, yes, yes.
So, that's quite a difference. Can you explain what's Wisconsin doing that, we're not?
He's really bothered by this.
That's my first question, then I got another.
Gearing up to answer that.
May I help you? I don't remember where was Wisconsin on that?
1.91 million, there's number three.
Yeah.
Number
Is
three.
that an outlier year for them or something?
No, this is a trend. So, these are slow, sustained investments and planning over time. I don't think you can speak to, but I don't think, this isn't one large grant in any one year that is going to sort of do these things. So, again, we need to pay attention. We need to pay attention to what our peers are doing. And when we talk about difficult budget times and we talk about cuts that we're making, we have to remember that we have to continue to make difficult decisions and invest in these other things. Benign neglect is not going to move us ahead and keep us in a position as a top research university. Sure. So, but I do hear the marching orders, Chair Hips. We will get right on that.
Well, we have our, just a second, one more. Okay, go on, related to this? Yeah, okay, yeah.
I mean, Wisconsin, Madison has been a major research center for a long time.
As are
I
we.
mean, they have a very good reputation and they've drawn people from all over the country. And so I don't think this is something new. They've been excellent in this for a long time and we just got to keep going. But
Yeah, I think the change in that probably, the delta was a little bit different before. And so there's areas that we should expand in. We have very, very strong NIH funding. And as was mentioned, a lot of our startups are then in med tech, not surprisingly. We have this leading med tech enterprise. We have opportunities in NSF. We have opportunities in DoD. There's multiple funding agencies, and we need to be focusing across those in a broad way.
Thank you.
I just have a second.
Go ahead.
So the second question relates to slide 32, and Chair Johnson was talking about, we're number 139 startups. And that's a deceiving number too, because that's just startups that we're directly related to. There's a vast more number of startups. I think, I think the majority of startups aren't even affiliated with the U, but they're U spun out. I mean, they're from the U, right? So not everybody goes through the IP to you license their stuff. So that's a little confusing, but I think it needs a qualifier. And then I don't like that 3.55 billion. I'm gonna be honest, I think that's deceiving as well, because that's not very much, and then it says all time. Well, does that go, when you say all time, does that go from 18, whatever we started, to now? That's not very much, I mean, it should be like the same 5 years. In the last 5 years, these 139 startups produced X. So we can compare apples to apples and get a trend line going over years. So that's just my two comments. It was confusing for me, so.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're running a little behind time, so Regent Wheeler and then Regent Mohammed.
Okay, thank you, Chair Johnson. I'll try to be succinct, but I just want to say that this doesn't mean much unless it translates to that real world use. So I really appreciate the excellent examples you gave about that real world. And related, I'm wondering, and we're focused on outcomes, but a lot of focus gets on the money appropriately. And you are, to bridge off President Cunningham, incredibly efficient with the use, and we're getting a lot of value return for the money that's applied here. Are there any national measures that can compare like dollars invested versus outcomes created? Because it seems like we would excel on that one, which is probably the most important measure you can get, is like, what is this really achieving for real lives and real environments?
Yeah.
Regent Wheeler, Chair Johnson. The metrics we shared in terms of ranking, those are the trade association called ATOM, among the university tech transfer colleagues and around the country among research universities using that matrix. So that is something we will take a look at it and get back to you as part of our supplemental follow-up.
Great, thank you. And just as a quick follow-up, it seems like the two are siloed a little bit. what the outcomes you're getting versus what dollars are invested. I wish there was a numerator and denominator associated with that so we could see value created for the community, which I think we're doing exceptionally well at. So thank you very much. Thank you.
The efficiency ratio.
Regent Mohammed.
Could create one, yeah.
Thank you. Not to further harp on the rankings piece, but I think we're in the space of friendly competition and trying to figure out how do we effectively get to that space of top two and not number two for the ranking. And so really thinking about tech commercialization and how are we really demystifying, right, information related to getting our state more future forward and ready in that space. And so what does it look like to have clinics out in greater Minnesota and areas in our urban ecosystems to really ensure that our communities are aware of what is happening, but also really being on the mark and really ready and prepared for all the opportunities that are emerging, right? I know there's a lot of federal opportunities as well around patents. And so really, how are we seeing ourselves as a hub and spoke for that, but really also training up folks utilizing our services like University of Minnesota Extension and our various different research facilities across the state and across the campus.
Yeah, thank you, Regent and Chair, for that question. I think I might just call upon the example of the MinDrive program, which was a state investment in research, and the impacts that I think that program has had over the last decade in exactly the kind of things that you're talking about. So for example, the cancer clinical MinDrive really has had that mission of opening clinical trial opportunities across the whole of the state. And I think we can see examples as well where we can take advantage of our extension to where we've already got place-based work happening and bridge off of that for bringing more access for clinical trials. But I think that that is a really important point you raise of something that we need to continue to focus on, not just through one individual program.
Thank you, and I want to thank the panel for an excellent presentation. And I'm sorry.
One final question, specifically related. Thank you, Chair. Specifically related to your section on how strong startup culture is in Minnesota and innovation throughout Minnesota. I was wondering why that is. What policies do you introduce to support students, especially underrepresented students, in accessing commercialization, patenting, and startup resources as a whole?
Region and Chair, I think one of the something that we are very proud and appreciative is not just what university is doing, but how we are partnering with our business community and have a greater ecosystem around entrepreneurship, business development, what it means to have experiential learning. So that really allows having a lot more candid discussions, debates, but also training, mentoring. So that isn't just because your students are Carlson, but actually that is what they see talking to community partners, business leaders, but also continued training opportunity through the TechCom, especially our grad students populations and beyond. So I think these are combinations of many things combined rather than one particular policy or one particular incident that we've seen over decades. It's not just success of this year or 5 years alone, but this is one of crown jewel in the actually whole country looking at Minnesota as a model.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Great. Thank you. And if that's it, thanks to the panel again.
Thank you.
I appreciate the presentation very much. The next item is an overview of how the university is leveraging artificial intelligence to advance its mission. To present this topic, we welcome Professor of Statistics, Galen Jones, Regents Professor Vipin Kumar, Senior Associate Dean of Health Informatics and Data Science, Genevieve Melton-Mew, and Director of Research Computing, James Wilgenbush. But first, Provost Ritter, would you like to tee up this panel, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair Johnson. As the board is keenly aware, the Elevate Extraordinary 2030 Strategic Roadmap identifies AI as a critical tool for evolution and innovation across multiple strategic imperatives. You can find it really in every area of that plan. It specifically calls for the university to lead AI innovation in teaching and learning, and invest in field-defining research to advance the frontiers of AI. Joining us this morning are several of the university's leading experts in multiple fields of AI who will provide the committee a glimpse of where the university stands in this field, and perhaps more importantly, where we're headed next. This time, I'd like to turn to our presenters and Dr. Jones to get us started.
Thank you, Provost Ritter, and good morning, Chair Johnson and Vice Chair Gulley. It's a pleasure to be here. We are very excited to share a vision for the way we plan to transform the AI ecosystem at the university. We aim to make the university a center of excellence in AI teaching and learning, a top destination for AI research and development across disciplines, and to invest in university operations to attract, develop, and retain a skilled university workforce. Ultimately, we have a grander vision. We aim to position the university as a central feature of the statewide AI ecosystem, making Minnesota a destination for research and development across all sectors, including, but emphasizing health sciences, medical technology, agriculture, and the environment. Our vision includes a comprehensive pre-K through higher ed and into the workforce training program, and public-private partnerships that drive innovation and discovery. It would be remiss to not acknowledge that there are technological, societal, and environmental challenges with AI, but we're going to meet those head on. It's the partnerships amongst industry, government, and the university that are crucial for addressing those issues. No one institution or entity can do it alone. If you think about ChatGPT, which we'll get to in a minute, OpenAI spent somewhere around $4 billion to train that model. No university is going to do that, right? On the other hand, they couldn't have done it without the contributions of university researchers. So I'm going to largely focus on the university today, but I want to keep that larger vision in the back of our minds. 3 years ago, OpenAI launched ChatGPT, and yes, it's only been 3 years. But that made it clear to everyone, I think, that generative AI was going to change the way we work and the way we interact in this world. I don't think this is hyperbole. A recent study published in Nature estimated that more than 40% of our everyday lives are impacted by AI, and that was a year ago. Where are we at today? And this is increasing. However, AI is much more than generative AI, and as such, it also impacting the health sciences, agricultural practices, materials development, our everyday lives, among many other areas that are important to Minnesotans. What is perhaps a little less well appreciated is that the university has had a significant role in these developments over time. The university is home to some of the largest academic data sets in the world, which will help fuel the next round of research and development in AI. We also have a very long history of leading in computational infrastructure by housing the first university supercomputing center. And of course, Seymour Cray was the father of supercomputing, is based here. The Gopher protocol laid the foundation for the modern internet. It's a little bit more academic and technical, but we also lead in algorithmic development. We have expertise in recommender systems. So these are the things that tell you that Netflix uses to tell you what to watch next, right? We can debate about how good they are, all right? We also, faculty in statistics, computer science, mathematics, and those foundational disciplines have led in the development of these algorithms. And their contributions have impacted large swaths of the AI landscape at this time. Another Another contribution that we have here is a good culture of interdisciplinarity. You may recall that a year or so ago, the Times of Higher Ed ranked us #1 amongst public R1 institutions. So these ingredients, interdisciplinarity, expertise in foundational AI, computing infrastructure, and access to data, have led to significant accomplishments in several areas. The university has one of just a few AI institutes funded by NSF, where they're working to make agriculture carbon negative. The Center for Learning Health System Sciences, led by Dr. Melton Mokes, is making real contributions to the health of Minnesotans, for example, by detecting sepsis before it's too late. We're developing new materials and new procedures to make AI more efficient and lessen its environmental impact. And we have an emerging area that's really emphasizing ethical and responsible use of AI at the university. However, much, not all, of the current work is focused on research. There have only been relatively fragmented, uncoordinated efforts to train university employees or to develop modern pedagogy. There is insufficient cross-disciplinary research to keep pace with the moment and leverage these new methods and technologies. I want to be clear that this is not unique to Minnesota. This is something that we're encountering at every institution in every state in the U.S. We are all grappling with how to evolve our institutions in the face of these fast-changing technologies. Some institutions have rushed to implement AI training and have poured significant sums into perceived research opportunities, often without a clear objective or plan. Others have pretended it doesn't exist and are just ignoring it. Our university has taken a different approach, and one that I believe will provide long-term dividends. It reminds me of something I was taught as a very young man in the military, that sometimes fast is slow. Slow is smooth, and yet smooth is fast. We've moved with intention, right? So in complex, rapidly evolving situations, rushing in leads to frequent course corrections, whereas moving with intention is going to yield better long-term results. And as Provost Ritter mentioned, AI is weaving its way through all of the strategic imperatives, which gives us a real opportunity to transform the AI ecosystem at the university. By making the university a center for excellence in teaching and learning, you can see that in the first two imperatives. Training our students to be engaged in society and be prepared for the workforce. Making the university a top destination for AI research and development across disciplines, and to invest in the university operations because we want a skilled, talented workforce and we want to retain them. The AI Hub will be the central unit that focuses and drives this vision by leading, coordinating, empowering, and amplifying existing and emerging independent efforts across the university. The AI Hub will have 3 pillars: education, research, and administration and operations. It will also have a very significant outreach component towards the community and in building partnerships with industry partners. We believe this will be an effort to develop effective internal activities and to present a coherent external presence by serving as the front door for data science and AI activities at the university. The AI Hub will cultivate this ecosystem by doing the 3 things in these boxes, which roughly translates to facilitating access, providing guidance, and communicating impacts. In particular, we're going to focus on driving this cross-disciplinary innovation and discovery. That's both within the university and developing more interdisciplinarity and collaborative work across disciplines, across colleges, across campuses. But we're also going to engage with industry partners in this space too. There are active research projects that can be done in this space. We're going to provide a comprehensive AI education and upskilling for university students, staff, and faculty. This is going to be a significant effort of this to modernize our training of our workforce here at the university. We're also already starting to work with folks in industry on doing this for companies because we need to recognize that AI is a disruptive technology, and we want to aim to helping mitigate some of those disruptive impacts. And lastly, I'll just say that we need to, we want to drive the whole state forward and become a global hub for AI and data science. Not just the university, but the whole state is, as a global hub for AI across public and private sectors. So I've largely focused on the university, but I'll bring it back to the overarching vision. It's important to note that this is where we're headed, to be position the university as a central feature of the statewide AI ecosystem, making Minnesota a destination for research and development across sectors, including health sciences, med tech, agriculture, and the environment, and developing a collaborative and comprehensive pre-K through higher ed and into the workforce approach to training, and in developing these public-private partnerships. I will now turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Melton Moaks, to outline some of the early actions that we plan to take to achieve these goals.
All right, thank you, Galen. I'm going to really click into many of these different aspects, and I'm going to start by talking about a critical, cross-cutting, and foundational tenet, ethical and responsible AI. And this is going to guide and really be the underpinning for all activities and programs within the hub. It includes embedding equity, bias mitigation, accessibility across all the AI curriculum, technology solutions, calls for proposals that ensure that the AI solutions that we create serve everyone. Prioritizing critical thinking in human oversight. It's really important to recognize that AI has to support and not replace sound judgment. With this, we need to uphold academic integrity, and that's so important as we evolve, transform our curriculums into one that does have AI within it. And this will ensure that AI that's used in research, teaching, and operations meets the highest ethical standards, scholarly standards as well. And then fourth, promoting AI fluency for all. We need to build shared literacy across our learners, faculty, staff, and the broader community. Finally, investing in strong governance, compliant infrastructure, and policies to innovate responsibly and build trust. Together, these will form the backbone of our AI hub. So what does it mean to become a global and statewide hub? I think Galen characterized much of this well, but it really does mean building an ecosystem that extends beyond the university's four walls or multiple walls across our multiple campuses, but spanning sectors and providing shared value within the state and even beyond that. So I'll give a couple of examples that are early wins. We have hosted now for the second year our Women in AI and Data Science Conference, and this has engaged more than 800 attendees across academia and industry. Second, we have really deliberately collaborated with state government, and this includes providing testimony to the Minnesota Senate Jobs and Economic Growth and Finance Policy Committee, and we are going to be going back there very soon within the next month. Third, we've extended our reach into the community and multiple community spaces, and this does provide support to the public around learning and engagement. As we bring the AI hub together, we're going to be able to do so much more. And what does this look like? First, we're going to act as a central convener and community builder. This means, again, bringing together these constituents to collaborate, problem solve, and co-design the future of AI. Second, fostering rich bidirectional learning opportunities. So this can be in the form of new opportunities with fellowships, our learners going out, exchanges and programs with also with industry folks coming into our four walls. And this will strengthen our collective capacity and impact to be able to do this together. Again, this will require different partnerships. And then the AI Hub, really importantly, again, is going to build and lead cross-sector workforce training. And we'll click into that in the next 2 slides. But this will upskill our students, university staff, faculty, and others. And it will keep our state competitive. With this new AI Hub, we'll really be poised to grow our capability as an AI leader, convener, and trusted resource. So we also have this unique opportunity, this has been touched upon, but just to underline it, as an AI hub, to partner strongly across Minnesota's outstanding industry landscape. And this includes, of course, manufacturing and advanced materials, medtech and healthcare, agriculture and food science, and other sectors to create new partnerships. As briefly touched upon, but I'll go into this in a little bit more detail, we play and will play a pivotal role in shaping the future of education. This is a domain, again, that's rapidly evolving, and we need to really meet that challenge. And it's central to our mission. So over the past 2 years, we've had some initial successes. I'd like to outline a couple. University AI makerspaces, which are accessible to all faculty, staff, and others. We've even opened it up outside. And this provides a hands-on learning experience and design experience around AI. Second, an AI upskilling program, which we're really, really excited about. The first that launched in late 2025 with Honeywell and Mayo through a Minnesota State D grant. Oh, Phillips and Mayo. And Phillips as well, sorry. Honeywell, Phillips, and Mayo launched in late 2025 through a DEED grant. And then finally, a data science and AI summer camp for high school students, again, cultivating the next generation of AI-ready learners. So with this new investment, we're going to elevate this to the next level. And again, building these multi-tiered AI literacy programs, ensuring that everyone gains that foundational knowledge to be able to use AI responsibly and effectively. Offering discipline-specific AI training tailored to the unique needs of academic fields, professional roles, and emerging career paths. Supporting academic and administrative units as they're going to develop AI initiatives to be able to advance their missions and strategic goals. And finally, again, that leading workforce training and upskilling program, not only to develop our workers more, but really build that pipeline and keep Minnesota competitive for these new AI-enabled jobs. So together, this investment, again, is going to position us to lead in education, to empower our students, our organization as the university, as a greater good to the state. So finally, the AI Hub is going to transform research and discovery, and research and discovery as a whole is already being transformed by AI. How we do this is going to, how we do research today is going to be very different than how we do it tomorrow. And this is going to accelerate our capacity, again, to have high-impact interdisciplinary AI innovation. So we have a strong foundation, as Galen covered, and we're going to build upon that. And some of the things that we've done over the last couple years that have been in place now for some time are the AIC grant work, as well as our Data Science and AI annual meeting, both fostering early stage ideas and promoting knowledge sharing. With this new investment, the AI Hub will position the university to compete for these interdisciplinary larger grants, and it's going to strengthen our team-based research by building out cutting-edge AI tools, compute, and data resources to accelerate research across disciplines, including those areas that need specialized data management and security, healthcare being one of them. Strategic investments in AI expertise and distinguished research programs so that we can be a leader in several high-impact AI areas, cross-disciplinary workshops and convenings, and finally, innovative research partnerships, some of which we've talked about. Together, this will help us to create a vibrant and collaborative AI research ecosystem that's going to position us for impactful discoveries. So with that, on behalf of our leadership team, thank you so much for the opportunity to present, and we look forward to the discussion and questions.
Thank you for your very excellent presentation. Before we take questions from the regents, Provost Ritter has some comments.
So I hope you get a sense of why I'm really excited about what comes next year. And I just want to emphasize 3 aspects of what you just heard. One is that connection to industry that we have here is extraordinary. It's a huge strength and advantage for us overall, and it means that the work we do will be of broader benefit to the state. The second is the focus on thinking about AI and the public good, again represented in strong ties to the state, something that I think will have an opportunity to elevate even further as our new CIO who's coming in is currently the CIO for the state. And then the third is that strong commitment to education and workforce training, K-12, ongoing workforce training that will not just benefit the university, it will benefit the whole state.
Thank you. And President Cunningham has comments as well.
Yeah, so first of all, I really want to thank you folks. You know, they're a year of committee work and coming together for the board. You can see there's been all these seeds, as we do across the university, of many flowers blooming in all the places. And what this next step is bringing together some strategy and organization to those many different efforts in a way that can really exponentially increase the impact and meet the needs of both our learners, our research, and then really serve the public in a broader way. I will highlight, as is my job to highlight, is they did say the word investment in there, and it will be an investment, and we are going to invest. And it will be a substantial investment. But this is needed. It has to be done. It's both our role as a state university as well as our obligation to our students and our faculty. I've asked somewhere in there for upskilling for presidents as well as any of you that want upskilling. Our workforce itself needs that upskilling, but it will wind up being an investment, and you'll hear more about that over time. But with that, again, just as we get back to budget times, you remember, as this is clearly in the strategic plan, the group did a year of committee work before this to help us figure out what part of the strategic plan it should fit into and where it fits and how to roll that out best. So this has already been almost 18 months or 15 months in the making. And then with that, as we come to budget time and we talk about the things we're strategically investing in and making hard choices elsewhere, this is why, these are the sorts of things that we have to do and that are exactly within our mission to do. And we'll fundraise also. Yeah.
Thank you, President Cunningham. Regent Turner.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. I heard a lot of encouraging things. Okay, you have to understand the perspective I come from, frontline worker, et cetera. I appreciated the emerging, how did you say this, emerging section about values and ethics. I appreciated that. I appreciated the statement that AI will enhance and not replace. I mean, these are all trigger words for frontline workers everywhere. I do have a question when you say that you interact with industry. Now, is that just the CEO and, or when you're doing your research, take the medical, okay? Take what I do, bedside care nurse. You're going into healthcare. How far down the ladder do you do your research? You understand what I'm getting at? Because it's very important if the hospital or whatever healthcare facility is not going to ask the people on the front line how this is all going to work, then I would think that we would want to do that in our research.
Thank you, Regent Turner. I'm sure Dr. Melton Mokes is going to have a lot to say about healthcare in just a minute, okay? I'll just say on a personal level, my wife is a nurse, okay? And she is already seeing the impacts of AI in her. She's a floor nurse at United Hospital, and she's seeing those impacts every day at work already, all right? And so it is real. It is impacting every level, not just in nursing, but in HR and organizations and every aspect of the enterprise. In our training, what we've done with Phillips and Mayo, and we just got another D grant, but we can't make it public quite yet. all right, with 3 other companies, all right, is we're starting and we're providing training from every entry-level employee all the way through technical software type engineering employees and engineers, all right? And so the idea is that we want to help every employee, not just the researchers. Now, we will also engage with companies around research projects in other ways too. And so it's not just the research, it's also the training and trying to mitigate some of these disruptive effects that people are already feeling. Genevieve, would you like to?
Regent Turner, I just want to acknowledge that the changes that are occurring, and I'll speak very personally about healthcare. I'm a physician, I'm a colorectal surgeon, are significant, and there are significant concerns, and putting AI into clinical care can have some very dire consequences if the AI does not behave appropriately, right? It can be errors, can be even deaths or very adverse outcomes. I will say a couple things. The School of Nursing, I'm going to start there, has been really a leader to date in the area of AI in nursing and has really convened groups nationally to build out what this needs to look like from a nursing perspective. And then nursing in general, as a field, is pushing very hard to be part of the decisions of how AI is being used in the workplace, as you know. And I do think that the idea of how we can decrease the burden of much of the work that goes on today and really get focused on the patient is where the opportunity lies, because there aren't enough nurses, and there is work that nurses are doing today that really aren't adding to the actual patient care. So really that focus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Bergstrom.
Thank you for that presentation. Absolutely fascinating. I have 2 questions. First one, calling back to our first presentation today about the research enterprise. In one of your slides, you talked about how the few areas we're going, but you mentioned that we are one of the leaders, right? And I think it's an NSF hub, right? Just calling back to that first discussion, what's the risk there in terms of sustaining that? And what are we doing about that? Because it sounds like that's been huge for us so far.
So I'll defer to my colleague Jim and Vipin. They are actively involved in this, but I'll just say that my understanding is it's a 5-year grant. Okay, it's not an but please correct me if I'm wrong.
You're referring to the AI for Agriculture NSF grant. It's a 5-year, $20 million grant anchored at the University of Minnesota. But your broader question is, what is our leadership in this area broadly? And this is just one instance of it. This is not an isolated instance. University of Minnesota has been a leader in pushing the frontiers of AI, as Professor Galen Jones mentioned earlier in his presentation. You look at the supercomputing history at the University of Minnesota. You look at the algorithmic advances, you name it. I'll give you 2 more examples, very concrete examples. The president announced an initiative about making America great again in FAI. So it's called America's AI Action Plan. Basically, the plan is meant to make sure that America is a leader in AI, because in this day and age, if you're not a leader as a country, there could be great consequences. There are many, many consequences, but there's great consequences. And there was a huge focus in that plan on AI for science and building the science of AI. And then 3 months ago, in November, middle of November, he issued another directive, the Genesis mission. And this entire mission is directed on making it actionable. And this mission is being led by Department of Energy, but is being percolated to all of the agency. We heard in the previous presentation that we talk about we have $1.2 billion in research, and we are sort of moving up or plateauing or so forth. All of the research funding that's coming from all of the agencies is going to be directed towards at the intersection of AI science. So so the question is, what are we doing at the University of Minnesota? University of Minnesota led the first 2 workshops at the interface of AI science. 2 of them right here in this building at the bottom floor, funded by NSF, and just on AI-enabled scientific revolution. So what I'm saying is that this, it's not something we got a one-off grant and we just started working on it. It's a leadership that we have. I'll give you one other example. Many of the questions that you're talking about, the ethics, the job losses, the competitiveness, it's not just a question about state. It's not just a question about a country. It impacts the entire humanity. So United Nations has been debating these for several years, just like every micro agency you will be seeing anywhere. Last year, they decided to create a panel, the AI expert panel that would advise the United Nations on all of these implications that you're talking about. The panel just got recommended last week, okay? Is being voted by United General Assembly today. It will become formal today. And it has 40 members from the entire world, 4 from North America, 2 from US, 1 from Canada, 1 from Mexico, and there's one from University of Minnesota. It'll be known tomorrow, right? So I'm just telling you that we are not someone who's coming in. Our history goes back to Seymour Cray and to the current future.
Great, thank you. My other question, I think a few months ago, learned of the term makerspace when I walked through Walter Library. And I'm sure my colleagues are very familiar with them, but if you would just act like I'm a 4th grader and just explain it, what is this AI makerspace?
Yeah, so you could walk in there today and say something like, I want an AI, right? Something that really has no content, but they have staff there that will walk you through tutorials. They'll try to figure out what you are actually trying to achieve. Is it a new chatbot for a course? Is it videos? Whatever your technology is, and they'll help get you started on it. It's also a little bit of a sandbox. If you know a little bit and you want a little bit of guidance, but you just want to play around with things in a low stakes environment, you can go in there and do that. And it's just open to anybody at the university to do this. This goes back to this idea that we're trying to change the culture a little bit and allow people to experiment and try new things in these environments so that then they can implement them in their research, their teaching, in their personal lives.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Johnson.
Thank you. We've got 5 more folks with questions or comments. Representative Peterson.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. My question for you guys today, I have 2. For the first one, I'm curious about your guys' plan for the AI bubble popping. I know that that's a concern that a lot of people have, and I really just want to kind of inquiry on that, if you guys have any set in stone plans.
No. So Jim, would you like to say anything?
Just a few words. We understand right now that there are companies that are working very hard to grab as much market share as possible. And that revolves around an area that we're all familiar with. That's the ChatGPTs and so forth. What Dr. Kumar touched on is what's happening here at the University of Minnesota, something to be very proud of, around how we're actually transforming the way that AI works altogether for the service of science. And so these mega models, as they're often referred to, and we've seen recent articles in the popular press about how these large sort of Goliaths of AI aren't really getting to some of the more important problems. And so what we're developing here is, and really pioneered out of Dr. Kumar's lab, is something called knowledge-guided machine learning. And that knowledge-guided machine learning combines the information that we know through tried and true practice, scientific models, and so forth, with the power of neural networks or large language models. That combination is actually the answer to a lot of, I think, the bubble popping, if you will, and the fact that the Goliath isn't going to necessarily solve the problem. And so very excited about that. We have some extremely tangible efforts, like, for example, in ag and forestry, but there's also connections to other areas of the economy that we're working directly with. And this is where our industry partnership really plays out nicely.
So I'd like to just add a couple of things. I think there's a real risk of some of these larger companies not being in existence 10 years from now. That does not, I mean, There have been tremendous investments in them, and they're not turning profits. It's hard to imagine that's going to continue indefinitely, right? And so some of that's going to go away, but the day-to-day use of AI is not. It's actually been impacting your life for the last 20 years or more, and it's only increasing. So yes, some of those high-profile companies might not be here, right? But it's important to notice it's not going away. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then my second question for you guys, it's about sustainability. It's no secret that AI is detrimental to the environment. And I just want to kind of inquire about your guys' plan to keep this plan sustainable long-term, not only for the university, but for the planet itself.
You know, this is something that we all worry about too, okay? It's a real issue. It's a real problem. The scale, there's a few ways to go here, right? So the scale that we're talking about at the university itself is really a drop in the bucket compared to the data centers that people use to mine Bitcoin, all right? Or many other data centers. There's also active ongoing research in this space here. We're already seeing these improvements from our materials folks, from our, what's the microelectronics folks here. But it's also important to keep in mind that the same criticisms were made when the computer started, okay? And it's still here, and it's much more energy efficient now. And so that's a pretty common path with technological developments. I'll just say we are actively engaged in doing it at the university here, and it's a larger conversation taking place across the industry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Mohammed.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, and thank you all for your robust presentation to us, particularly around, I think, Dr. Melton, what you had mentioned in slides 8 and slide 10, where we're getting a snapshot of just our overall landscape of industry partners that we're working with. I do want to really underscore the element of working with our public partners as well, right? Really, as we're seeing AI governance, adoption, and enablement in our day-to-day work, but really getting them up to speed and understanding how quickly the industry is moving. And I know we have a CIO that's coming in soon, so I know we might be able to address that. But one element that does really come to mind for me is around for our staff, students, and faculty who are, you know, within our ecosystem and within the institution, how are we preparing them around training, around AI governance and security, particularly around the segments of data management, around information that they're inputting into a chat box or whatever it may be, but also what it's coming out with. Anthropic and many others have come up with, I think this past month, right, concerns that they have with their own models, right? And so if the companies who are leading this work are having those challenges, how are we seeing ourselves being responsive to that? And then I think a secondary piece to that is how do we see this AI hub as maybe an advisory or a guidance, right, or a compass to the state?
So as far as using the tools, right? So if you use Gemini on campus now, your data is not used to train their models, okay? But this is something that there are faculty in my own department who insist upon using ChatGPT even though we tell them that, all right? And so part of it is just education, but we need to do something comprehensive. We need for students before they show up as freshmen to understand what we view as ethical and responsible use of AI. We need to reiterate that once they're here because saying it once is not going to be enough, right? Then we need to train our staff appropriately in that same space. There is not an organized set of training right now. We are working on it, right? It is being discussed and developed in these early action teams that are these action teams that are working on developing the things that are coming out, specific concrete actions out of the roadmap. And so I've been involved in robust discussion around those issues. And then we need to come back and train them again when they get into their majors or into grad school about what is the appropriate use of AI tools within discipline-specific or professional context. And so this has to be a comprehensive. It cannot be a one-off, do a video training and click through it and answer 3 questions and you're done, okay?
Maybe
Would
just
you
to
like to-
answer the question of how we're engaging with the public sector, just a really good example of that. Just 2 weeks ago, we traveled to San Jose to meet with executives at NVIDIA. NVIDIA is principally a hardware company that is responsible for producing a lot of the infrastructure needed to do AI at large scale. And with us on that trip was Senator Bobby Champion, and also Representative David Baker. And having them there with our industry partners as well as members of our faculty and staff at the University of Minnesota was amazing. It demonstrated a level of engagement that actually turned many heads at NVIDIA executives there and made them comment, in fact, that they haven't seen something quite as comprehensive in the other groups that they've hosted as a state. And so we were proud of that, and there will be follow-up. There is follow-up from that visit, but it's really emblematic, I think, of how interested we are and how we're also receiving reciprocal interest from our state representatives.
Thank you. Regent Lugar.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, and I just want to again thank the panel. This has been a wonderful presentation. We're talking a lot about leadership, and I love the focus on a state and global hub. I'm just curious, as AI is everywhere, are there universities right now that are seen as leaders? It's exciting that we are, but who are the others?
Okay, so Jim mentioned NVIDIA. So NVIDIA, one of the co-founders of NVIDIA gave like $50 million of equipment to the University of Florida to create the AI university, okay? As a UF alum, I'm happy and a little sad all at the same time, okay, on this. There's also been a significant investment from state government and a donor in New York to create Empire AI. And there's a burgeoning investment through the Huntsman family at the University of Utah, all right? And so those are the three I would label as furthest along at this point. There's others we could quibble about which ones are exactly leaders. But in some of those cases, they are still in the same boat that I mentioned during the presentation. They rushed in, they made a big investment, and they're still trying to figure out exactly what to do. I don't want to call any of them out, in particular here, but that has happened at some of these ones that did rush in and make big investments right up front.
I would just add that it's going to be hard to find a single major research university who's not making a big investment in this area. The meeting that we held just 6 months ago on the first floor of this building on AI, this intersection of AI science, we had leaders from Michigan, from Ohio State, from Illinois, you name it. I mean, all over the country, right? So everybody is pushing, and this is the time of change. This is the time of disruption, and this is when the status quo changes, and this is when the opportunities arise for being in the top tier. And I think that's the moment we have, and then we like to seize it. And as Jim and Galen said, this trip to NVIDIA was just fascinating. Not only from the fact that NVIDIA was impressed, but I could see both our representatives from the state Capitol Hill so engaged. 4 of us gave a briefing to them about a year ago in Minnesota State Senate, and they were very engaged. They invited us for 90 minutes, and they kept us there for, I think, at least 2.5 hours. We were there for a lot longer. But the kind of engagement we were seeing there, and I had private conversation one-on-one with them as well, they were just enthused, they were really excited. So I think this is the moment where we have everything aligned in the sense that we are leaders, we have momentum, we have the industry and the state coming together, and I guess with the support from the university, I think we could do a lot more.
President.
The stars are potentially aligned, and now is the moment, and we will need partners beyond the university. So these are big investments that in order to be able to continue to compete at the level that we're competing and do the things that need to be done, we are going to need both public and private investment. And those are the kinds of investments we're seeing all around the country. And I appreciate we didn't make the mistake of being first in the field and now have the opportunity to do a lot of learning. But with that, we also have, we have to both invest and raise money.
Thank you. And once again, we're running behind time, so Regent Johnson, and then batting cleanup, Regent Hipsch.
Thank you, Regent Johnson. Just a brief kind of testimonial about AI in practice in the healthcare fields from my own personal experience. So I'm an internal medicine physician. I've been practicing in an outpatient setting at Mayo Clinic. You know, one of the really important things that we do is you take histories and do physical exams on patients. It's really important that they're accurate. And it's also true that this is enormous time and effort burden, and that one of the biggest causes of burnout in the medical field is this kind of documentation. So looking at how AI might help this, we're now currently in our group is, again, the Division of General Internal Medicine there. We are having in our outpatient practice AI, and when a physician goes in the room to see a patient, they ask first, is it okay with you if we kind of turn this on? And if they agree, then we do. And what happens is the physician will ask the patient questions we want to know. And then when they move on to the physical exam, they could speak out loud of just the heart exam, you know, cardiac exam, this, neurologic exam, and say it all specifically. So all that gets done at the same time that the history and physical are taking place. And then afterwards, we are looking to edit some these things right as we're learning and going on. But this has enormous potential to save time and effort and avoid burnout. And I'm sure this could be same applicable in the nursing fields where you have to document a lot, right? And those are huge burdens. But this is a great opportunity to make an important difference in that area. So that's how we're just using it on a small scale in that setting.
Thank you. Regent Hipsch, and then we'll have to move on.
Yeah, my question is really quick. I can see the indirect revenue that comes back to the state from this investment. Can you see any direct revenue streams coming back to the university from the use of AI?
Strictly from the use?
No, from the development of AI, I should say. Like, when we make this investment, can we find revenue streams? Like ChatGPT. I mean, somebody's out there searching these algorithms, and we're coming up with the data, and so they're getting paid. Can we get paid?
Yeah. Maybe I'll
Go for it.
Maybe I'll help out there, Chair Johnson and Regent Hipsch. I mean, there's a couple ways. I mean, first of all, main mission, we have to, our students and faculty won't be competitive in the workplace unless we do this. So there's that component. I mean, research, as you noted before in the last presentation, does generate jobs and startups, and there will be lots of that in AI in all kinds of fields. So there's potential. And every federal dollar that we get, then that IP is tied back to the university when they get a job later on, when they get a startup company later on. So there's potential med tech, AI, all kinds of other companies and future things that have potential, just like development of a new drug that could potentially flow back. But then the other way that revenue flows back generally is if we think about what we were saying here before, federal agency priorities are changing. But AI is going to be a big one of them, right? And so we have the potential also, we need to make sure with the leadership that we have that we get our appropriate share of all of those federal grants that are coming down. Those pay faculty salaries, those have indirect costs associated with, those train our graduate students. So that is and those revenues are often, bigger that federal dollar input than our tuition in many ways. So those are the ways that we get that impact in addition to having the impact on society.
Okay, thank you for that. That's helpful.
Thank you. And we're hoping this panel comes back. Again, clearly the board is very interested in what you have to say. So thank you for your presentation and your Q&A.
Thank you very much. We'd be happy to come back anytime.
Our third item is a discussion on the various faculty and teaching appointment types at the university and their contribution to the institutional mission. Let me welcome our presenters, Vice Provost for Faculty and Academic Affairs, Beth Lewis, Associate Provost for Faculty and Academic Affairs, Ola Graham, and Director of Employee Relations, Mani Vang. Provost Ritter, would you like to start us off on this item as well?
Yes, thank you, Chair Johnson. Our next presentation will provide an overview of the diverse faculty and teaching appointment types across the university and their specific contributions to our institutional mission. The Elevate Extraordinary 2030 Roadmap emphasizes strategic investments in the workforce to recruit and retain talented faculty and staff. Our hope is that this presentation will better inform the board on the long-term faculty composition trends across all 5 campuses while outlining current both challenges and opportunities. And I will let you know, I've already warned them that we're behind, so they're going to try and be efficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Chair Johnson, Vice Chair Gully, Provost Ritter, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present today. Next slide, please. The goal of this presentation is to give the committee an overview of the university's faculty appointments, discuss trends over time, and highlight current work related to faculty appointment types. Next slide, please. Tenure system faculty have a primary responsibility to advance the university's teaching, research, and service mission. Term or contract faculty are typically engaged in 1 or 2 of these functions, often critical to a grant-funded research in a given area with no teaching or service responsibilities, or they fulfill a critical teaching or clinical function with no limited research responsibilities. The majority of our term faculty are in the health sciences who engage in clinical and/or research activities. Academic or P&A instructional staff mostly engage in teaching. Adjunct instructors is a broad term that generally refers to individuals who teach 1 or 2 courses per year on a regular or one-time basis and who do not hold full-time positions in the university. Adjunct instructors may hold titles associated with faculty or instructional staff, such as those described above, for example, adjunct assistant professors or teaching specialists. Next slide, please. Tenure system faculty include tenure and tenure track faculty. Tenure track faculty have a lengthy probationary period, typically about 6 years, and undergo a rigorous review prior to being recommended for tenure. Of all the faculty groups, tenure system faculty have the highest research expectations and all hold terminal degrees. Rhonda Franklin is one example of a tenured faculty member. The faculty at Crookston and Duluth campuses are labor represented and governed by a collective bargaining contract. All other faculty are governed by the faculty tenure policy and other Board of Regents policy. Next slide, please. Term or I'll turn this over to Mani actually at this point.
Thank you. Also contributing to the mission of the university are term and contract faculty. Term and contract faculty have date-specific contracts that range from 1 year to multiple years. The work of our term faculty tends to be more specialized and will typically have primary focus on teaching, research, or clinical work. These are just a few examples that you see on the slide here in terms of the different titles that they have. The vast majority of our term faculty are clinicians in the medical school, many of whom contribute to research and teaching. And here's an example of contract faculty. Teresa Fong is a clinical associate professor in the School of Dentistry, specializing in pediatric dentistry. The academic professional and administrative employee group, commonly called P&A, includes academic professionals who directly support the university's mission. In this presentation, we will be looking at a subset of academic professionals, namely those who engage primarily in direct classroom instruction. We have approximately 1,200 academic professionals across the university in the category of both full-time and part-time positions. This does not include our adjunct instructors. P&As are typically on an annually renewable or multi-year contract. Our adjunct instructors are also P&A. They typically have a primary professional occupation elsewhere and are hired to teach courses specific to their profession expertise. As Vice Provost Lewis mentioned earlier, adjunct instructors teach 1 or 2 courses per year and do not hold full-time positions in the university. Examples include practicing architects who teach in the College of Design, musicians who teach in the School of Music, and full-time lawyers teaching in the law school. Most adjunct instructors are generally paid per credit hour or rates set for individual courses. These rates vary from college to college and are determined by factors such as credentials, degree, level, and type of course. And here's an example of one of our adjunct instructors, Roger Cullen. Depicted here is an adjunct senior lecturer in the master program in accounting in the Carlson School of Management, and is someone who brings experience from a long former career as tax partner at Deloitte Tax. Next, we will present data on full-time positions, but I want to mention that we have close to 1,100 adjunct instructors across the university, a number which has remained relatively stable over the past 10 years.
Beginning with our Duluth campus, we will now look more closely at the faculty composition by campus over the past 10 years. The column for each year shows the ratio of term contract faculty to tenure system faculty on the Duluth campus. The height of each column are indicated on the y-axis. That's the vertical axis on the chart to the left. Duluth is a highly ranked regional research and liberal arts university with more than 10,000 students, Nobel Prize-winning alum, and a global reputation for freshwater research. This chart shows that the proportion of term faculty to tenure system faculty has remained fairly constant over time, although the total number of faculty on the campus has decreased slightly. The varied missions of each of our campuses is reflected in the composition of their faculty, and as you can see here, Duluth relies on tenure system faculty complemented with term faculty, and most of whom are engaged in direct classroom instruction. Moving clockwise to our Crookston campus, faculty on the Crookston campus are known for their focus on experiential learning for its campus-based students, and Crookston faculty have been early pioneers when it comes to online and distance education. As a teaching-intensive campus, Crookston relies on lecturers and teaching specialists in addition to tenure system faculty in order to deliver its curriculum, and that is really represented by this chart. The height of each column, representing the total number of faculty members, has clearly varied over the past 10 years, reflecting, among other things, fluctuations in student enrollment. Morris, national-ranked, undergraduate-focused liberal arts campus with a deep commitment to environmental sustainability and a diverse student body. As was the case on the Crookston campus, tenure system faculty on the Morris campus contribute to teaching. They conduct research or creative activities in the fine arts. They serve as academic advisors for the students. They lead core student experiences such as undergraduate research, internships, study abroad, and service learning experiences. Again, on the Morris campus, complementing its tenure system faculty, there are a little over 30% lecturers and teaching specialists, represented in the blue, who are critical to the teaching mission of the campus. As you will notice, the total number of faculty on the Morris campus has declined over the past 10 years, reflecting decreases in student enrollment. Our Rochester campus, which was established in 2006, prepares health sciences professionals and maintains unique collaborations with world-renowned medical and biotechnology organizations in the community. The campus is really characterized by a very strong focus on innovative approaches to student teaching and learning, which is also reflected in the composition of its faculty, where you see there are about 60% who are teaching-focused, direct instruction lecturers and teaching specialists. 40% of the faculty are tenure system faculty, with dual research expectations, both in their respective disciplines, but also in the research on scholarship of teaching and learning pedagogy. And that is actually, in addition to that, they also have substantial service and administrative contributions that they need to be making. Moving on to the Twin Cities. As you know, the Twin Cities campus is one of the most comprehensive research universities in the nation. It is one of only 5 with an engineering school, with a medical school, with a law school, a veterinary medicine school, and an agricultural school, all on one campus. As we mentioned earlier, the majority of contract faculty are clinician researcher faculty in our medical school. This chart shows the composition of faculty on the Twin Cities campus without the faculty in our very large medical school. As you can see from this chart, the ratio of full-time contract faculty, represented in gold, to tenure system faculty has increased very slightly, but certainly not dramatically over time. This is the Twin Cities, including the medical school. Shows a different picture again. This shows the faculty composition for all colleges on the Twin Cities campus. When the medical school is included in our data, we see an obvious, more substantial increase in the number of term faculty. This is a trend that we see in medical schools across the country. I haven't recently looked at the Association of American Medical Colleges, but last time I looked, the University of Minnesota still had a fairly comparatively high number of tenure system faculty, but it is very clear medical schools tend to have that composition of large number of clinician researchers along with a core number of tenure system faculty. Next, I will pass it on to Vice Provost Lewis, who will provide you with some comparison data from our Big 10 peers.
So this chart shows 17 of the Big 10 flagship campuses. The height of the bar represents the total number of instructors and faculty, and then the percentages are the number of tenure track faculty. So we ordered this based on the percentage of tenure track to faculty in relation to the total number of faculty and instructors. Just as an example, you can see that the University of Minnesota is at 59% of our total faculty are tenure track faculty, second to Illinois. Next slide, please. In recent years, governance groups have worked on a number of areas related to how the university might improve the conditions for these faculty groups. And these are just some of the examples. The most recent is Provost Ritter formed a working group to address some of the issues around term faculty and academic professionals. Next slide, please. These are examples of some things we have accomplished. This work has been ongoing for several years at this point. One example is that adjunct instructors must keep pace with annual pay increases. So there's been some guidelines around that. We also did institute some minimum pay floors for faculty across the system. And there have been clear promotion guidelines for contract faculty and lecturers. As an example, the Crookston campus just recently revamped their guidelines to be clear in terms of promotional paths for teaching specialists and lecturers. Next slide, please. So here are some takeaways before we open it up for questions. There's been a relative steadiness in the proportion of different faculty types. There are differences between campuses that are reflected in their purpose, and the accomplishments are ongoing and collective work across the campuses are ongoing. So Chair Johnson, Vice Chair Gully, Provost Ritter, members of the committee, this concludes our presentation, and we would welcome any comments and questions you may have.
Oh, thank you. President Cunningham has some, Provost Ritter first.
Just a quick note, thank you very much to the presenters on this. As they noted, we have such different strengths across the different campuses that are part of our university. You see that in the faculty composition. You see it in examples of those individual contributors. And I would also say that you see a lot of examples of us over the last few years wanting to attend to how we can better strengthen our support, our governance, our professional development pathways for all of our faculty. And that is work that we do in partnership with faculty governance and in partnership with HR, and we are grateful to those partners.
Thank you. President Cunningham.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for putting this presentation together. This is partly in response to sort of questions that we've had from the board over the past in terms of, as budgets decrease, are we changing the composition of our faculty in a way that would be problematic or should be paid attention to? I think this shows that that's overwhelmingly not the case, although I think it's something to continue to attend to and attend to in local and not just cumulative ways as well, and that's something that provosts will be working on. I think the other part I'll mention here is if you're confused about the first slide on the types of tracks, that's because everybody at the university is confused on the difference in the tracks. Nobody in administration or the faculty that I've found can actually easily describe what those are and how you move forward on them. And yes, it is not done like this anywhere else, essentially. So there's a lot of opportunities here to figure out the tracks appropriately so that each of them are important, each of them contribute in their own way to the mission of the university, and each should have clear promotion and compensation components of them. And right now it is incredibly confusing in a way that is needless. However, it will take a fair amount of work to actually get clarified. So it's like a long-term goal that'll be on everyone's plate, but it doesn't have to be this difficult and confusing. And it's something for us to attend to sort of over time. In the meantime, we're trying to make it less confusing for people, and then in the workforce compensation ways, make sure that groups that have not been attended to as much for compensation and clarity can try to get some of that. And that's part of the ongoing work of Ken Horstman's committee and work with the provost as well in our strategic plan. It is part of the strategic plan in that number 5 in terms of the workplace compensation.
Thank you, President Cunningham. Regent and Vice Chair Gully.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. I just had a really specific question. I think last year, probably when we had a similar presentation. Oh, and I should first of all say thank you. I appreciate having this presentation and talking about this again. It's an issue that is really important to me. I think the last time we had a presentation like this, I'd asked about the pay floors because I think at the time, well, I won't even, I think I know how much the pay floor was at the time, but it didn't align with the way that people get paid necessarily. And so I'm wondering if you can expand on that a little bit and tell me if you've made any progress on aligning that with the ways that people are actually paid in different departments.
There are different, Vice Chair Gully, thank you for that question. There are different ways that departments will pay different instructors. So there are what often are called adjunct instructors, which are paid per credit and they're just being hired for one course. For example, it might be somebody who is a full-time lawyer, 40 hours a week, but is interested in teaching a course for the University of Minnesota. And so that would be more of an adjunct. So that would be a per credit kind of basis pay. And then the other option is obviously part-time to full-time pay, where it's a 50 to 100% appointment where you're paid a typical your salary. So those are the two ways that are typically paid.
Thank you, but I think you're misunderstanding my question. So I understand, so I was an adjunct at the U for a long time, so I deeply understand that. And I disagree with the characterization that all adjuncts are just people who are teaching one class a year. That's not been my experience at all. And I talk to faculty all the time who don't fit that characterization at all. And what I'm wondering is, I think we had a minimum pay floor of something like 20-something dollars an hour, but when you're paid on a per credit basis, that doesn't translate into hours. So I'm wondering what the pay floor is if you are getting paid per credit. I think would be a more exact way to answer that question.
Thank you, Vice Chair Gully, for the clarification. There is a pay floor per credit minimum amount. Monty, would you be able to, I believe it was increased to 1,200?
Vice President
Calling a
Horstman
friend
is
with Vice
coming.
President Horstman.
Yes.
I believe it's 1,200 or 1,500, but I would rely on our
think you got
HR
the
folks
data.
that double check.
Yeah, it's 1,500, yeah.
Vice President Horstman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The minimum pay floor is $1,500, and recently, as a result of the Senate subcommittee that was focused on this for about 18 months, there were actions taken last year in regard to the pay floor for PA lecturers, teaching specialists, and then the stipend floor. And that is a first step. I don't have that detailed information in front of me, but those were implemented as a first step, and I think it was very popular, realizing it's not the full solution. So we did take that action, and we can follow up with the details of it for all of you.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you for coming up. Regent Mohammed.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, and thank you all for your presentation for us. I served as a teaching specialist and an adjunct before stepping into this role, and it's actually one of the things I feel really badly about because it was just a joy working with students. But the one thing that comes to mind for me is as we're looking at that snapshot of Big Ten universities, right, and some of our peers in this ecosystem, how are they currently structuring that, and how are they diversifying, right, their faculty models in a way that they're maybe bringing in more industry practitioners and really maybe being able to support some of these departments and different teams who may not have the funding resources to maybe have more tenured faculty? And could that really strengthen some of the opportunities that we have there, but still sustaining what we have, but also thinking about how are we diversifying from a more sustainable standpoint?
Chair Johnson, Regent Mohammed, I think it's fair to say that we look a lot like our peers in the Big Ten. We may have more confusing appointment categories, although I have to say some are quite confusing as well. Several universities have engaged in the kind of work that we're doing right now to streamline some of those appointment categories. But to your specific question, I think it's fair to say that we could not, several colleges could not carry out their teaching mission without relying on adjunct faculty. Mani just showed you an example from the Carleton School of Business, and showing a retired senior partner in Deloitte Tax who brings in just that kind of wealth of experience that makes a University of Minnesota education unique. And I think that's probably what you're getting at. It is absolutely crucial to delivering our curriculum.
And one note I will just quickly add to that is many universities now have a rank that is referred to as a professor of practice that captures that category, and I think that's a beneficial thing to consider.
Representative.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, presenters. I was just wondering, I've done a little bit of work within the undergraduate body to understand how HRs from different colleges hire diverse faculty. And I was just wondering, how do you all attract diverse talent geographically, and what opportunities exist for academics and industry professionals specifically to join tenure system faculty?
Thank you for that question. It's a very, very good question. I think you're right that each college does have, their own kind of recruitment plans and what their needs are. I know that we do have a, a presidential postdoc program that also encourages, highly skilled. Oh, we don't anymore? Sorry, I apologize. We did in the past, but I think that in terms of diversifying, faculty, that is a goal of every single college, and they work very closely between the deans and the, HR directors to look at the makeup of their faculty. We are looking to recruit, the best in their fields, of course, and making sure that, within our recruiting structure, we eliminate any biases whatsoever to ensure opportunities for everybody. So, I don't have a specific answer, to that question, but I know that every college is very, very committed, to that. So I don't know if anybody else, if Provost Ritter, if you want to add anything, or
I'll just make one quick comment. So we have had to make some changes in the ways that we do faculty recruitment, given some of the changes in the federal legal landscape around this. However, we remain strongly committed to practices that help us to recruit the most talented faculty applicants from all backgrounds, and there's a variety of ways within the current legal framework that we can do that in terms of our outreach, in terms of our networks, in terms of our interview practices, and so on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the panel? Well, from the group, thank you very much for your presentation. And we'll move on.
Thank you.
Our next item is an update on the university's strategic enrollment planning. Providing the update is Provost Ritter and Vice President for Strategic Initiatives, Ryan Schmiesing. First, President Cunningham, would you like to make a few opening remarks?
I'll be very brief. Thank you, Chair Johnson and members of the committee. I'm pleased to report that we continue to make progress on this board priority that was designated last year that we all share. The board identified this priority as act on a university enrollment plan that positions all 5 campuses for long-term success last summer. In previous meetings, you've heard updates on the campus level reviews and outcomes. Today, the team is sharing a more in-depth update on the university-wide review and recommendations that are coming forward. So each of the system campuses have an enrollment plan, and then there's a university-wide enrollment plan. This work will inform the development of a university-wide strategy that will come back to the board in subsequent meetings. For an overview of this work, we invite Provost Ritter to address the committee.
Thank you, President Cunningham. Just a quick framing comment here, which is that the vision that I think we have is to be able to coordinate across all of our campuses as we think of meeting the needs of the state in our approach to enrollment. A lot of the work that needs to be done to get us there has to do with technology, has to do with our information systems, but the important thing that I am seeing currently is a will to think of ourselves more collectively and to be of service to all the students, all the adults, all those interested in continuing professional and graduate education in the state. And that is a very exciting vision. And with that, I will turn it over to Vice President Schmiesing.
Thanks, Provost Ritter. Chair Johnson, members of the board. Today, I want to share some additional information about our review of enrollment management practices, policies, and procedures across the university. I want to provide a summary of our timeline, share some of the emerging recommendations that will contribute to university strategy, identify those that we have already started moving forward, and discuss some next steps. As a reminder, our work started in June of 2025 and proceeded over the summer, where individual campus visits, data analysis, and initial recommendations into areas of further discussion were identified. By early fall, each campus received some initial feedback with recommendations delivered late last year and finalized in January of this year. We are now in the phase of reviewing recommendations and will begin developing strategy and steps to capture opportunities and build on our existing strengths as a university. While there are substantial recommendations, for the purpose of today's update, on our progress and opportunities, we'll highlight selected strategies from the larger group that you will see on the slides. As has been shared, the university is moving forward with hiring a leader who will work across all 5 campuses for strategic enrollment management. Importantly, this position will lead the development and execution of strategy in collaboration with all campuses, working closely with our campus leaders. The position will ensure we have integrated platforms, effective policies, processes, and procedures, and aligned enrollment goals across our university. As I said, the search is underway, and we anticipate filling mid-year this year. Additionally, and importantly, we'll work to identify individuals who have responsibilities working across all campuses in support of student success. This clarification will help reduce any friction points for current and potential students, as well as for our staff supporting those students. There will be an assessment of current processes, tools, and practices to ensure they meet the needs of all campuses and identify areas where disproportionate customization or adaptation is required at the campus level. A unified admissions process is one of the clearest, most visible ways the university can enhance the student experience quickly. We'll evaluate the opportunities related to a standardized undergraduate application, platform, internal transfer from one campus to another, enhanced content resource management strategy to ensure equitable functionality across campuses, and enhance our financial aid communication with students and families. Underpinning much of this opportunity is to create a unified academic calendar across all of our campuses. A significant focus of the work ahead is developing a comprehensive enrollment marketing strategy to not only raise the profile of the university, but to enhance our overall recruitment efforts nationally. This work is kicking off soon and is in direct alignment with the university brand strategy work that you have heard about in previous meetings. It'll be critically important that we identify the University of Minnesota as an institution serving the entire state and beyond. At the same time, positioning each campus to clearly articulate their consequential contributions through their academic programs, student experiences, community partnerships, and workforce pipelines. Now I'd like to turn it back to Executive Vice President Provost Ritter to share a couple more areas where we are working to develop strategy.
Thank you, Ryan. Students that have started coursework towards a degree but stop out of college is another area of future growth. And that is driven, it's both opportunity, but it's also very much mission. We know that when a student gets a degree, the impact on earnings, on civic engagement, on health are great. When they start and they don't get all the way, you don't get those impacts. So doing what we can to be a place that helps more people who've started college to complete college would be a huge service. Many students who stop out of college have 45 to 75 credits and leave due to financial pressures, to uncertainty about program fit, or a declining sense of connection. The University of Minnesota has piloted programs recently to re-engage former students to complete their degree, and the opportunity exists to learn from that pilot and grow this opportunity for more former students, recognizing that we will need robust support strategies, clear entry pathways, and flexibility in program offerings. This, coupled with enhanced student success initiatives across the campuses, leading to increased retention of students, will also positively impact overall enrollment and overall completion. University of Minnesota will develop or clarify a system-wide vision for student success technology that supports referral tracking, coordinated case management, and transparent communication across units. An assessment of where existing tools meet student needs and where we have more to do may require us to build a stronger cross-campus care network will be important for our goals in student retention. It's important that data guide the configuration decisions so technology enables earlier identification of when a student is disengaging. Finally, and in alignment with one of the focus areas of the strategic roadmap, is the launch of an online hub. This would create a structure to better support, advance, and market existing courses and programs and identify potential gaps that we could pursue. Importantly, we have pockets of success and excellence across all of our campuses, and learning and building on those into a coordinated strategy across all of our campuses will not only be important, it's going to be essential. A coordinated strategy allows us also to increase access to a University of Minnesota degree, again, living out our commitment to our land-grant mission. In the coming months, we will continue our work on developing strategy and return in April to share more information. In the meantime, all of our campuses continue to review and evaluate recommendations and are making plans to recruit the next class and future classes to the University of Minnesota. Chair Johnson, this concludes our remarks, and we're happy to take questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the Regents on this presentation?
More than that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Regent Hibbs.
I just want to say I really love this. This is really great, and thank you for engaging on this because this is vital and important to our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, President Cunningham, Regent Turner first, I guess.
Who's first?
Oh, I want to share my appreciation also because when I first became, I'm in my third year, and my first year, as I did the campus tour, this was the area, this disconnect, and not thinking of as the whole, and some of our other campuses being kind of left out. So I really, really appreciate all of the work that is being done to make us a one whole system.
Thank you.
Thank you. President Cunningham.
Yeah, and thank you, Regent Turner and Chair Johnson. This was the loudest thing I heard when I first got here, when I was interviewing, the clearest directive from the board for those folks who are newer that we needed a system enrollment plan, we needed a strategy on this, we needed somebody in this vice president role who was overseeing, who's helping to work across. So these are things that are all coming to life, and the provost and the team have made them look very, very simple. This is a gigantic body of work that is happening under the hood. And some of that body of work is not simply the will to decide that we want to do these things. The technology platforms that underpin the admissions and enrollment component are fragmented, don't talk to each other, are different by campuses. There's a giant body of investment, I'm going to use the word again, that is needed to make those platforms coherent and modern that will then make this live into reality. So it's going to happen. We are on the path. We have the will to do it, including the unified academic calendar, those pieces. And then there's a lot of work under the hood of that engine to make the technology components work in a way that can make it seamless and actually function. So with a lot of gratitude to the team, but I just want to, like, the car goes fast, but then there's that engine that's getting built. So.
Thank you, President Cunningham. Any other comments or questions by the Regents? Hearing none. Thank you, Vice President and Provost. Next, we will consider the consent report. Provost Ritter, will you summarize the items in today's report?
Yes, thank you, Chair Johnson. So first off, we have the academic program report, and I'll break out very briefly. Part of that is a correction on the dates for some program discontinuations that we approved last time. You'll also notice other newly reported discontinuations. I will simply say it's part of a healthy practice of program review that you discontinue some programs as you make room for others. Third, we have some new programs here, including our Bachelor of Science in Interdisciplinary Computing, which we refer to as CS plus X, which is a very innovative interdisciplinary degree being offered by the College of Science and Engineering, along with the Colleges of Design and Liberal Arts. Other items in our consent report include the conferral of tenure on 2 new faculty positions. And finally, in this report, you will see a small change is made to our Regents policy on research involving human participants. That is in line with federal regulations. It is not a substantive change. And I am happy to take any questions on that.
Any questions? Thank you. Now, before I invite a motion to approve the consent report, you are welcome to ask questions, make comments, or ask for an item to be separated out from the report to be voted on separately. Are there any, well, clearly there's no questions or comments, but last chance on that. Any request to separate out an item by anyone? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve on behalf of the board the consent report?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. All those opposed, say no. The motion is approved. Thank you. And that is our business for today. Oh, one more? Oh, that's hidden back there. Information items, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the last item on our agenda is information items. This includes 6 legislatively mandated reports that you have information on here. It also includes some updates on tremendous awards and research projects across the university. Happy to answer any questions about those. And finally, I do want to share the news that we're delighted to report that the Higher Learning Commission has officially reaffirmed our institutional accreditation for the Twin Cities campus for the next 10 years. And if you'll forgive me, I have to read you one little quote from that report, which says, "Conversations across the U of M campus confirm that the institution's mission is widely understood and consistently enacted through its programs, enrollment profile, and operations. Faculty, staff, and students articulated strong alignment with the land-grant mission and the university's mission, emphasizing service to the state, preparation of Minnesota's workforce, and contributions to national and global scholarship." So we're proud of that.
All right, now, there being no additional business before the committee, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
How you